And this episode, I really want to go in and do something a little different. I want to focus on you. I want to focus on what changes you need to do to become a world-class CISO. Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome, my friends. You know what time it is. It is time. It is time to put on your seatbelt, and here we go. It is time for Life of a CISO with yours truly, Dr. Eric Cole. The E-Dog is in the house. I am fired up. I am ready to go, and we got a few more episodes to finish this year with power, and then a few episodes as we head in to January 2026, and I am just ready to turn you into world-class CISO. And this episode, I really want to go in and do something a little different. I want to focus on you. I want to focus on what changes you need to do to become a world-class CISO. Because I do a lot of these episodes where I talk about the company. And to be a CISO, you need to be strategic. And we talk about the risk tolerance in the organization and putting together a 90-day roadmap for the organization. But the reality is we need to get you being world-class. We need to get you acting, thinking, and behaving like that world-class CISO, because then it will impact the business. Now, yes, some of the things that you need to do are going to be things in the organization and might duplicate with some of the topics we talked about, but I really want this to be about you. Who do you need to become to have the biggest impact on your life, your family, your business, and your company and the world? Because that's really what it's going to take. What does this look like? And this is unique to each of us. Each of us, when we go in and look like, what does a world-class CISO look for Eric, is going to be different than what it looks like for you. Because you got different goals, different objectives. So that's really this episode is building out a blueprint of what does being a world-class CISO look for you. And then we're going to use that to guide what you need to focus on and what you need to do. Because the reality is we hear a lot of things about focus on why, like why you're doing something, or focus on what you want and not how you're going to get it, right? Your job is to focus on what you want and why you want it, and then leave it to the universe to basically dictate how it's going to happen, right? You just show up each day, execute, and perform. We know all that stuff. But the part that is always missing, the secret ingredients, the secret sauce, is what you need to focus on is not what and why. Those are part of getting there. What you need to focus on is who you need to become. Who do you need to become? What does this look like? If we're building the ultimate version of you, we're going in and creating the best version of you that's going to be this world-class CISO. What does that person look like, act like, think, behave, and focus on? So we're going to start off with, who do you need to become? Now, here's the reality. It's not something a lot of people talk about, but it's important to talk about. What type of CISO do you want to be? Because there's really three types of CISOs. There is your technical CISO, which is really a security engineer with a CISO title. There's your manager or director that basically manages people against a plan that is given to them. And that's sort of people that have the CISO title, but they're really in a managerial position. And then you have your true corporate officer, which is focused on strategic planning for the business and going in and focused on making cybersecurity an enabler for the business, focusing on growing profit and revenue across the company. So once again, I am taking a different approach because what I'm realizing is it's going to take a while for the industry to fully, clearly define the term CISO. So the approach I always took in the past was, listen, if you're a security engineer and you're tactical and technical and you have a CISO title, you're wrong. And if you're a manager or director and you're focusing on implementing and you call yourself a CISO, you're wrong. And the only real CISO are strategic thinkers that sit at the board level and go in and actually implement strategy. Those are the real CISOs. And I believe that's still true. But the reality is, as long as the industry is using CISO in 3 different ways, and that's not going to change overnight. That's not going to change overnight at all. They're going to keep doing that. So we just have to accept the reality. If you're a security engineer, and I believe you're wrong, but I could believe that I could be wrong too, right? So I'm giving you leeway that accepting that if you believe that a CISO is a technical career track for security engineers, then that's going to be your reality. That you believe you should work in cybersecurity for 12 years, and then at the end of your career, you continue to be technical and tactical, and you then get the CISO title as sort of a reward for your company, but you're really much more technical and tactical. You don't sit with the board members. You don't really sit at every board meeting. You're not sitting with all the other chief officers, and you're not really a corporate officer. If that's your reality, then guess what? Own it. Own it. Now recognize that in 5 or 10 years, I don't think that is still going to be called a CISO. I believe that's a chief scientist and not a CISO. But the reality is your company is giving you that title. It's on your business card. So that's your reality. Own it. But recognize that you're going to become somebody different than what other people might call a CISO. So if your reality is that you want to be a CISO that's technical and tactical, then great, design that person of you. Design that version, and that's who you need to own and you need to become. On the other hand, if you're a manager or a director, but you have CISO on your business card, or that's the title, then once again, just own your reality. I'm going to focus this on really what I think you all should become, which is that third strategic CISO, a true corporate officer. I believe that is what the CISO title should be used for. And then the second one should be a manager or director of cybersecurity. And then the last one should be a chief scientist in the organization. So I really think the correct titles are chief scientist, manager or director of cybersecurity, and chief information security officer. But I also want to be fair and honest to help you as much as possible. So if your reality is a little different, that's okay. I just want to make sure we're sort of clear on who you need to become. So now let's go in and focus on that chief officer, the chief officer in your company. So if you really want to become a chief officer, you have to go in and study chief officers. What do chief officers look like? What do chief officers think about? How do chief officers act and behave within the organization? Now, here's the first thing. Proximity is power. Who you sit with, who you hang out with, and who you socialize with dictates who you are. And we've seen this. If you've gone any readings or self-help or events or conferences, we've seen this over and over again, where different factors. One is take the salary of the people you spend the most time with. So who are the 5 people that you talk with, associate with, and spend the most time with, and average their income, and your income's probably going to be pretty close to that. It's going to be pretty aligned with that. Or you go in and you look at who you spend most of your time with, and that's going to dictate what you think about, what you focus on. So first thing you need to look at is, if you're going to become that corporate officer, who do corporate officers hang out with? Other corporate officers. So now, and who you have to become is, you need to spend X amount of time with corporate officers. So you pick that number. It's not 0 and it's not 100 hours. It's probably somewhere corporate officers spend probably 30% or more of their time talking with, hanging out, and associating with other corporate officers. Now, that's not saying you shouldn't and can't have other friends. Diversity is key, right? Diversity is key, but that's why it's only 30. I'm not saying 80 or 100 because that's not reality. But I will tell you right now, most CISOs, most corporate officers focused on information security probably spend less than 5% of their time with other corporate officers. That needs to change. So now, as we head into next year, and you go in and put together your yearly targets, your 5-year targets, your monthly targets, and your weekly targets, what if we go in and we make your 5-year target to be a corporate officer focused on information security? That you are truly a corporate officer, and here's the goal. You want it to be specific and measurable. You actually have corporate responsibility and liability. So your 5-year goal is to be at a company where you have corporate responsibility and liability for the success of the business, because that's truly a corporate officer. If you look at CEOs, they have corporate responsibility and liability. This is why you see these cases where if the company is not doing what they're supposed to, or cooking the books, or all those other factors, you see the corporate officer, the CEO, get targeted and get arrested because they're the ones that are ultimately responsible. So what if we make, and if that's too aggressive, make it 10-year. You decide, but we need a long-term goal for you. So on the business side, we're going to make, and you decide whether it's 5 or 10 years, how much time you need, but you're going to make a long-term target that you are a true corporate officer with corporate liability and responsibility for the company you're currently at. I mean, how does that fit? How does that jacket sit on side? I know that's sort of a big change, but let's go with that. You can do something else, but it has to be measurable. It has to be specific and measurable. Then, what if we make one of your yearly targets that 30% of your time by the end of 2026, 30% of your time is going to be spent with other corporate officers. That could be both at work, that could be after work, that could be weekends, that could be events, whatever you want it to be. But if we go in and we look at the total amount of time in a week or a month, and you look at how much time have you spent with other corporate officers, that number should be around 30% of your total time. So if you look at the total time, now you want to do a bigger target because on a daily basis, it's not reasonable. So if you go in and say, I have 24 hours in a day, and I'm going to go in and spend, what was 30% of that? About 7 hours, I think 7 or 8 hours. And you go every day, I'm going to go in and spend 7 to 8 hours with other corporate officers. That's not reasonable. Because between sleep, between events, it's just not reasonable. But if you do it over a week, a month, or a quarter, it can be very reasonable. So you just got to go in and pick that. So that's a good starting point. Now, when we talk about who you need to become and you want to be around other corporate officers, one of the first things that comes up, where do you sit? I do not believe you can be a corporate officer and work remotely. It's not possible because you're not going to be associated with other people. You're not going to be around them. I can tell you right now, face to face, you get so much more done. When I have my team or my employees come into the office, even for an hour, we get more done in that hour than we do in weeks or months. Because proximity is power. And when you are face to face, exchanging energy and working directly with each other, you're going to get a lot more done. Because here's the reality. If you're sitting across the table from me and I need your input, I'm just going to say, hey, can you help me out with this? Can you do this? Can you do that? And we just accomplish it. But if you're not there and you're remote and you're working from home, I'm probably going to send you a text. It's going to take you 5 or 10 minutes to get back. It's going to take you and it's going to be inefficient. We're not going to get it done. We're going to forget about it. And it's going to create frustration and tension on both sides. So there is power to where you sit and who you associate with. So are you sitting with the other corporate officers? Corporate officers sit together. And to me, a true CISO is one of 5 corporate officers. The 5 people that run a business, in my opinion, are the CEO, the COO, the CFO, Chief Legal Counsel, and CISO. Those are really the magical 5 people that run successful businesses in this day and age are basically having those together. Now, here's the problem. In most companies, the CEO, the COO, the CFO, and the Chief Legal Counsel all sit together. They all hang out together. Great example, holiday season. Most companies have corporate parties. If you look at a big company and they're having a formal dinner with, say, 20 tables, look at who is sitting together. At most of these, the CEO, the COO, the CFO, and the Chief Legal Counsel are all at the same table. Then their managers and directors are sort of tables around them. And very often, you, the CISO, is sitting with other technical people, right, or not sitting with them. That should send a clear message. You are not truly a chief officer. So those are just a few things that on who you need to become. And then once again, with targets. Once again, what if you go in and make it a yearly goal, or maybe it's a 2-year goal, depending on where you're at, that you have an office in the executive suite, that you sit with the other corporate officers. You are within 15 to 20 feet of the other chief officers, because proximity is power. Now, and once again, I'm just spitballing ideas to get you thinking. You need to create this for yourself, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of how I want you to approach this and how you need to think about this heading into next year. Then, and this is going to sound like a scary one, do you have corporate liability and responsibility? Do you have E&O insurance? Do you have proper protection in place that if something happens in the company and the company gets sued and you get sued as a chief officer, you have protection and liability that's minimized or reduced? So it sounds crazy, but you go to your executives and say, hey, I want to be a true corporate officer. I want to act and behave just like you. I want to have corporate responsibility, and I want to go in and also have proper protection and insurance. Whether you pay for that umbrella policy and the E&O or they pay for it is irrelevant, but this is how you need to start thinking, acting, and behaving as a corporate officer. Also, compensation. Chief officers get compensated in the millions of dollars. You look at some of these, I mean, like the CEO of Chipotle that then went to Starbucks. I mean, I think like is a $70 or $80 million compensation package. But here's the issue. Their value is worth it. Your value is based on what you're getting paid. So if right now your total compensation is $400K and every other corporate officer is getting $2 to $3 million, they have value, you don't. I'm just being honest with you here. So the question then is, what do you need to do to increase your value? What do you need to do? How do you need to behave? How do you need to act to increase your value so the company sees you as a multi-million-dollar value add and not a $400K? Here's the other big reality. And this is where some people struggle. Corporate officers make most of their money on bonuses and performance, not on salaries. When you look at a lot of these big companies, their chief officers are potentially making $300K base salary. There are people in the company that make a bigger base salary than your corporate officer. And that's how it should be. But here's the reality. They get little bonus, you get big bonus. Now, I believe that if you really want to incentivize a company, everybody should be compensated on bonuses and performance, because that's how people show up. If you're going to go in and give somebody $400K, regardless of whether they perform or not, that's insane. Now, the other handle is a lot of these people are risk adverse. So if you go to an average person and say, listen, I'm going to give you 40K, but if you perform and show up, I'll give you another 300. So you're going to make double what you're making now, because you're making 150, and I'm going to go in, and if you really perform and show up, I'll give you 350. Most people are not risk tolerant. That's why they work for somebody else. So if you now go in and say, I want you to take the same risk that I'm taking, they're not going to do it. So you got to be careful at what level you do that. But as a chief officer, you need to do that. What if you went in and you told your boss, listen, I know I'm currently making 300K and I'm making a 100K bonus. So I'm making 400K. What I would like to do is next year, I would like to go in and cut my salary in half. I want my base salary to be 150. But if I perform and over deliver, I want an 800K bonus. And here's the crazy part. If they are really good strategic thinkers, if they are really true corporate officers, they'll take you up on that. That's an amazing deal for them. But here's the question. Are you willing to bet on yourself? Are you willing to bet on your company? Are you willing to take that level of risk in the business? And then here's the reality. If you're not, maybe you're meant to be a manager or director of security and not a true corporate officer. Because corporate officers bet on themselves and are willing to take risk and willing to recognize that a majority of their compensation is actually going to come from adding value through bonuses and not through a base salary. Once again, giving you a lot to think about. And I know when I give this talk, people are like, oh, whoa, this is not what I thought I was getting, but I'm just giving you the reality, my friends. So what if that's another goal? And once again, might not be a year goal, might be a 3-year, might be a 5-year, is that your base salary is cut in half, but your bonus is tripled. I mean, that's a pretty good, you want to bet on yourself. You want to start thinking and accepting risk. That's how you do it, my friends. That's how you jump in. So next thing, corporate officers attend every board meeting. Corporate officers meet with other corporate officers on a regular basis. So how many board meetings do you attend a year? And do you attend the whole meeting? I know most folks that have a CISO title, they are typically don't going to the board meetings. Whoever they report to does. They put together the chart and brief them, but their boss goes to the meeting and not them. You're not a chief officer. You have the title, but you're not chief. Chief officers attend every meeting and attend the entire meeting. So what if that's another goal? You decide whether it's a year, 5-year, 10-year, depending on where you're at. But what if one of your goals is very specific and measurable? You attend every board meeting. And if you want to really juice it up, you present at every board meeting. Now we're really cranking it. Next thing, chief officers meet with other chief officers on a regular basis. When was the last time you had a face-to-face meeting with the CEO? When was the last time you even communicated with the CEO? When was the last time you had a phone call with the CEO, just you and the CEO? Most people that have a CISO title are like very rarely. They can't even remember the last time they had a one-on-one meeting with just the CEO, nobody else. Just them and the CEO talking about cyber, the business, their career, and the value they're adding. And then they can't even probably remember when they had a phone call with just the CEO or an email one-on-one, no one else CC'd but you and the CEO. You need to go in and crank those numbers up. What if you make it a goal that twice a month you have a 20-minute meeting with all the other chief officers, CEO, COO, CFO, chief legal counsel? Notice what I'm doing here. I'm focusing on who you need to become with very specific, measurable, achievable, and realistic targets. These are measurable. I don't go in and say, oh, you need to increase your exposure with the chief officers. I'm going, you need to meet 20 minutes twice a month with each of the chief officers. This is getting very brass tacks and things you can measure. So now you can go in and say, okay, what do I need to do so the CEO will meet with me twice a month for 20 minutes? Who do you need to become? What information do you need to ask? What questions do you need? What knowledge? And this gets into the next thing. Chief officers understand business. They understand profit, loss. They know how to read balance sheets. They know, value before earnings. They know all those terms out there. How well versed are you on that? How well knowledgeable are those financial terms? That is what chief officers do. So now the question is, what courses, what books, what online training are you listening to? And this is another good indicator. When you're in the car by yourself, when you're in the gym by yourself, what are you listening to? Are you listening to rock music? Are you listening to random podcasts on hobbies? Or are you listening to business podcasts? Are you learning how to think and act in terms of profit, loss, value add, and growth of the company? So now you are designing the ultimate corporate officer focused on information security. How well versed are you in business? How well versed are you in cybersecurity? What are the other skills you need? To be a true chief officer, you need business, you need communication. How well are your communication skills? You need managerial. You need to manage people. You need to interface and work with other individuals. You need to become social. You need to become one who loves to be around other people, loves to interact, loves to help and support. How are you on all those skills? And if you're not, what do you need to do to improve those skills in those different areas? So now we're going in and we're focusing in on the mindset piece, the relationship piece. The last thing I want to finish with, and I'm going to be doing a disservice if I didn't do this, because this year has been a wake-up call for me and a lot of my friends. Me and a lot of my friends, we thought we were doing good and healthy, but had a lot of different health issues. I lost several friends this year because they weren't focused on their health. They were so focused on being the best chief officer that they neglected their health. They were eating garbage every day, organs failed, health issues occurred, and they ended up, unfortunately, passing away. So here's the reality. How can you be a chief officer? And I'm just going to be super blunt here. I'm just going to, just warning. I'm going to turn off my sensitivities because I need to be blunt with you. How effective a chief officer you're going to be if you're dead? I mean, it's hard. I had to have that in there where now one of my statements is this. And I do this with my team and my others. Planning whatever it is, planning to meet with your executives, planning a party, planning a vacation, whatever it is difficult and stressful. Isn't that better than planning a funeral? I mean, it's just that I had to get that blunt and reality for me to really go in and say, Eric, your eating is garbage. You think you're doing good. You brag about getting blood work done every 2 months, and you have all these eating habits. But the reality is, if you look at my DoorDash, nothing against DoorDash, but are you ordering healthy or garbage? And that's sort of the reality. I know what it needs to do. I mean, as simple as there's one ingredient. If it has one ingredient, eat it. If it has multiple ingredients, don't. But I haven't been doing it. I haven't been following it 100%. And that's what it's going to take. So last thing, what are some targets with your health? Going to the gym. Now, here's another one. I would go to the gym every day, but my cardio was garbage. If my cardio is not good, my heart's not healthy, and the blood's not flowing, do you realize, and this was a shocker for me, a lot of the really big bodybuilders end up don't living a very long life. I think they said sort of the average age for like the top notch, the really like super buff Arnold Schwarzenegger's, where you look at them going, damn, they're disciplined. It's impressive. Do you realize they think, and look it up? That's a nice thing now with AI and ChatGPT. You can look this stuff up. I think their average lifespan is like 45 because they're not healthy. Fit and healthy are two different things. So I've had to make a decision. I like looking good. I like in the summer being pretty beefy and muscles where people notice it. But here's the reality. If my internal organs are failing and my internal organs are not functioning and I'm not going to be alive, does that really matter? So now I'm compromising. Maybe I'm a little more lean. Maybe I have a little less muscle, but my organs are operating at efficient. So one of my long-term goals is I leave this planet with all my organs. I want to keep them that healthy that I don't need to get any removed. Now, nothing wrong if you did. I'm not judging. I'm just telling you how I'm looking at the world and what I'm focusing on. So I hope this episode gave you a lot to work with. In 30 minutes, I can't tell you everything, but my whole idea in these podcasts is to get you thinking, giving you seeds, giving you examples so you do the hard work. Once again, anything I could help you with, post below if there's other topics you want. Otherwise, let's finish the year strong. Let's focus on you. It's not selfish to focus on you and create the best chief officer focused on information security you can be. Have an amazing week, and I'll see you next week on Life of a CISO.